Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 208th episode of Book of Hours, our first run on YouTube. Getting close to a point where House of Light might be released before we finish this run, but I actually spent a little bit of time over the weekend planning out my Tree of Wisdoms. So in addition to the work that we're doing right now, I believe we should be... Oh, we are not currently listening to something in the phonograph. We'll work on that. And actually, I think I want to do the colors in the liver again because just after listening... oh, hang on. No, well, let's take a look at the Admonitory Automata project first. Okay, so... I think this is the one that had the gull noises. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just do this... I'm going to do this from the top. Now this is because we started at the very beginning, well, not the very beginning, but because this is not quite where the game is right now. There's a phonograph that was added to one of the other rooms. There's a little bit of a change in terms of what we can use in terms of listening to phonographs, but I want to try and get through. I just want to try and get through everything, right? We read all of the books, so now we're on to films and phonographs. And, yeah, I'm slowly going to start focusing on some of the lore. But I did want to commit some things to the Tree of Wisdom. So I was talking a little bit about, and previously, how I've sort of realized that there are some skills that need to get leveled up. So I'm bunched up at the top end here. And I've less in sort of this middle ground that I need to be able to get everything to the very top of the Tree of Wisdoms. So in fact, I've not made it a requirement to complete this run to get everything up to the level 9. I'd like it. It would be nice to sort of have those achievements and, just have a thing in, YouTube to show, hey, I mastered the Tree of Wisdoms. The way that I've figured it right now is I'm likely going to have one language that is, that's like missing, or sorry, one skill that's missing from the tree no matter what. I think I've already sort of locked myself into a path that... I mean, I'm sure I can work it around, but the plan that I've worked out right now is a bit of a... Well, it's not even really a plan. It's kind of a set of guidelines in terms of how I want to divide my attention across the different branches of the tree. But in this case here, I believe there will still be one skill that's sort of left in the back. But the big thing here is there's a lot of cases where I need to level up certain skills to go further along the tree. And a lot of these actually wind up being quite challenging ones. So, taking something from a 6 to an 8, or, trying to get something up to a level 9. This is quite difficult to do in Numa, but we're also only going to be getting a new book every season. So I do actually have... I have some challenges ahead of me in terms of just being able to accomplish some of the things that I want. But one of the best ways that I can manage this is to have as many elements of the soul ready for Numa as I can. And there's a little trick that you can do for Numa. So I think we've talked about this before, but basically you can break up a memory into a bunch of lessons. And as long as you sort of manage your time properly, you can get back your original skill while also having these memories to be able to sort of level up some of the other ones. And Numa is really going to be the time where I try to raise up some of these others. But the trick here is that, and you sometimes really can only learn this through experience, but basically anything that is higher than level 5, there's simply not enough time during Numa to be able to get all of those memories used. So it's very likely that you will wind up having the skill at a lower level than you needed. Now, in some cases, that might be fine, because what you want, like I have a couple of cases where some skills that I have are sort of over-leveled. Now, the thing is that you don't just use them for placement in the Tree of Wisdoms, you also use them to make things, so it doesn't hurt to have a skill over-leveled. But in this case here, if you want to try and sort of redistribute some of your knowledge, Numa's a time to do that. But there's the practical implication that anything 6 and above here really does not have any practical value to me for not being committed to the Tree of Wisdoms. So for the memories that are for the skills that are like don't need to be leveled up, there's really no reason for me not to start pushing these things into the Tree of Wisdoms. So a really good place to show what I'm talking about here is Horomachistry, right? Because we've got 6, 7, and 8. And we actually have quite a few Horomachistry skills, so we could use... again, I made some notes here for myself. So we've got Drums and Dances, we have Inks of Containment, we have Sacrolamea, and we have Inks of Power. So now there's always sort of the veto. There's the lore veto, right? If there's something that's just appalling to the character that I'm playing here, I need to find a new path around. But let's take a look at Drums and Dances. So I am a bit of a bosky character, but in this case here, let's see what we can get. So with Drums and Dances, we have the story, the root, the Thunderskin, the eternal drum that beats to preserve the skin of the world, is a god from flesh, which is to say he was once mortal. He died to preserve the last god from stone. He died for love. He died for necessity. In matters of Bosk, these three are often intertwined. And in the case of Horomachistry, the Thunderskin, the eternal drum that beats to preserve the skin of the world, is a god from flesh, which is to say he was once mortal, but the horned axe, last of the gods from stone, required his death, and so the Grail gave him up, though he loved her. Love is always subject to the will of the hours, as all Horomachists know. Let's do it. This is actually a tricky one, but I think I'm gonna lock it in. Okay, so we have Inks of Containment, I said next. So our options are, when it is permitted, certain knowledge is forbidden to mortals unless it's wisely contained. This law is named Calyptra. The enforcement of this law is named Calyptra also. The 3 hours who enforce it share that name. They permit that knowledge to persist only in certain sanctioned places. The most dangerous secrets must only be recorded in the inks called Incastum Terminale. Horomachistry teaches us Calyptra's importance. Alternatively, this can go to Preservation. Certain knowledge is forbidden to mortals except in 9 great libraries protected by the Covenant stones they hold, where this knowledge can be safely recorded in the inks called Incastum Terminale. These libraries are together called the Watchman's Tree, and the Covenant marked by these stones shares that name. This, then, is the matter of preservation. I think we're going to say when it is permitted. Certain knowledge is forbidden to mortals unless it's wisely contained. This law is named Calyptra. The enforcement of this law is named Calyptra also. 3 hours who enforce it share that name. They permit that knowledge to persist only in certain sanctioned places, and the most dangerous secrets must only be recorded in the inks called Incastum Terminale. Horomachistry teaches us Calyptra's importance. You gotta know the rules to break them. Sacrolamea. So we've got Hushery. Of endings, the hours are not eternal. The sun in splendor was riven and cast down. If we mortals so desire, we might prevent his return. Understand Hushery, and you understand endings. Or, of limits, the hours are not all powerful. There is a place beyond their reach where mortals and immortals might build a shining city of iron and ivory. Horomachists understand the hour's limits. And finally, Inks of Power. The weapon, the greatest and most secret truths can only be recorded by the librarians of the Watchman's Tree. Even then, only beneath the shelter of the tree's branches, and only in the sanctioned inks called Incastum. There are certain languages in which these truths might be spoken aloud, but the hours no longer permit that power in the mouths of mortals, as the wisdom of Horamachistry teaches us. Or, the wound. The greatest and most secret truths can only be recorded by the librarians of the Watchman's Tree, even then only beneath the shelter of the tree's branches, and only in the sanctioned inks called Incastum Terminale. There are still certain languages in which these secrets can be spoken aloud, but that has never been safe. These secrets are the world's blood, and to speak them aloud is to shed that blood. We who are silent have always known this. I have mastered the wisdom of the laws and disagreements of the hours. Alright, a lot of metal. I believe I've actually got my 8 metal now, so. Okay. I also have the option of doing this with Ithistry, which I'm now going to do. So I'm a little nervous. Oh, actually, no, I'm fine here. So glass blowing and vessel crafting. We have Glass the Keeper, the highest purpose of a glass vessel, to separate what is without from what is within. Perhaps, Hushery suggests, this was the first purpose of the first hour, and only in that first moment could there be a perfect understanding. Or Glass the Egg, the highest purpose of a glass vessel, to show clearly, perfectly, what would otherwise be hidden within. Perhaps, Ithistry suggests, this was the first purpose of the first hour, and only in that first moment could there be perfect clarity. Pyroglyphics. Birth and Fire. Fire was the first understanding. The hour named Moth learnt that even before the Watchman brought light. This is illumination. Or a red blossom. Stories written in fire end all the sooner, but are remembered all the longer. The Ithistry wisdom teaches us the certainty of change. That's definitely one for this character. Glaciery and Lightsmithing. So, the Red Flower's lesson. A lesson from Ithistry. Fire reveals, smoke conceals. This is the lesson of the Red Flower of the Watchman's Tree. Even the most dangerous of knowledge is no danger at all when it is given to the fire. Alternatively, we can put this in illumination. The White Flower's paradox. A paradox of illumination. Light reveals, light blinds. This is the lesson of the White Flower of the Watchman's Tree. Even the most dangerous of knowledge is no danger at all when it is forgotten. And Inks of Revelation. So we have Hushery. Truths that were. The inks called Incastum Terminale are permitted only to the librarians of the Watchman's Tree. Those inks can be used to reveal truths, even truths that are no longer so. Not since the dawn times, when the sun hung red and low, we felt its warmth like autumn. If that first and gentlest sun returned, the truths might return with it. Hushery remembers. Let me try reading that again. The truths that were. The inks called Incastum Terminale are permitted only to the librarians of the Watchman's Tree. Those inks can be used to reveal truths, even truths that are no longer so. Not since the dawn times, when the sun hung red and low, and we felt its warmth like autumn. If that first and gentlest sun returned, the truths might return with it. Hushery remembers. Or, truths that will be. The inks called Incastum Terminale are permitted only to the librarians of the Watchman's Tree. Those inks can be used to reveal truths, even truths too great for daylight. Perhaps then daylight is not bright enough. Perhaps we must find a way to kindle a light bright enough to reveal those greater truths. This would be a matter for Ithistry. Definitely going for that. Now we have a couple of options. So we have Preliminal Meter. 9 modes, 9 horizons, the subtle rhythms of words which open ways. Of keys, one of us passed the summit, one may not. 2 of us sought the lantern, 2 chose flight. The 7th rarely named, but not forgot. This is illumination. Or of swords, birds of a scale, wings and talons bright, worms of a feather, kissed again by stones, kissed by fire, kissed by snow, by blight. This is ithistry. Alternatively, we have transformations and liberations. From steel, if the sun has failed, then we must manufacture our own second dawn, with eye, with hand, with the light beneath the heart. It won't be easy, but what great work ever is. Ithistry might shape the way. Or, if even the sun's division was a plan, then once we complete that plan, we'll bring the second dawn and unite the sun. It won't be easy, but what great work ever is. Illumination might show the way. And I'm gonna leave that for my own ponderings. Okay. So Skolakosophy is currently blocked right now. Nyctodromy needs... Actually, Nyctodromy might have a special case. But right now we're waiting on Skolakosophy for that. Illumination's waiting on Hushery. Now, Bosk is a little blocked because I need to get Horns and Ivories up. Same with Preservation. We did Horamachistry. Birdsong, I have a lot of work to do on that one. And then we just did Ithistry. But, yes, so for Hushery, we actually have a couple things that we can do. So sharps or serpents and venoms. Okay, serpents and venoms can be a Skolakosophy or a Hushery. So the first sun, in the dawn times, the sun was lower, so we gave it our blood. From our blood it knew us, and so it was kinder. But those days are long gone. If we were foolish enough to find the first sun and give it our blood again, it would devour us. If we fed it the blood of our enemies, of course, it might devour them. This is the kind of thing you hear from Skolakosophists. Or the last sun. In the dawn times the sun was lower, so we gave it our blood. From our blood it knew us, so it was kinder. Its serpents brought us its poisons to drink, and so we died. But we only died a little, and so we dreamed, and returned the next day to give it our blood again. Those times of peace persist in the lessons of Hushery. Alternatively, we have Sharps, which would be a Skolakosophy again. A war in dreams. Before speech we could not dream, which is to say that before we could wield words, we were weaponless, and even Long dared not to enter the Mantis for fear of being devoured. It's not obligatory for Long to wield the weapons of speech, but they generally choose to. Perhaps that's why the Hours charge their names to hunt down Long, even the Long who claim to serve them. Skolakosophy recognizes this truth. Or a wound in dreams. Before speech we could not dream, which is to say that before speech tore open the peacock gate to dreams, the Mantis was unwounded and at peace. It's not obligatory for Long to pass that gate, but generally they choose to. Perhaps that's why the Hours charge their names to hunt down Long, even the Long who claim to serve them. Hushery recognizes this truth. And it looks like we're evenly split between Whist and... Let's do a wound in dreams. Actually, just give me 1 second here. No, I almost made a terrible mistake here. Yeah, we're waiting on Nyctodromi here, but for Nyctodromi, hang on. Okay, I'm gonna run with it. Insects and Nectars is a Bosk or Nyctodromi one. So I have the Grail's Favorlings. The bright-winged, dark-winged Gladerflog kind called themselves the Grail's Favorlings. They are gone now, like all the Carapace kinds, but we can still use the arts of the hive to glean the sweetness in the hidden places of the wood, the legacy of the Carapace cross, Bosk. Or the moth spawn, the bright-winged, dark-winged Gladerflog kind called themselves the moth spawn. They are gone now, like all the Carapace kinds, but we can still use the arts of the nest to follow the old roads of the night. The legacy of the Carapace cross, Nyctodromi. Next up we've got Pearl and Tide. Somewhere here. All right, another Bosk one. So we've got what returns. The sea accepts every gift it is given, and sometimes, now and then, those gifts are returned. The Red Grail slew the hour named Tide, and what remained was given to the sea, so perhaps one day that hour might return. This is life, and so this is Bosk. What remains? The sea, Whale Road, Salt Realm, Moon Way. Anything given to the waves may find another home, unless its home is the sea. Nyctodromi shows us the way across the sea and the way home. And Slates and Sensations. So Hushery, the end. The artist knows their every work could be improved. The artist understands perfect work can never be completed. Perfection exists only as absence. Hushery understands this. Or an end. The artist knows their every work could be improved. The artist understands perfect exists nowhere. To go below the world, is not an easy journey, but there the artist could achieve their utmost. Nyctodromi is the way to perfection. And what this does is this has opened up Hushery for me. So with Hushery, we still need to bring Serpents and Venoms up to 5, though, so that doesn't take me anywhere. I think that does it for... my improvements. So I need Hyksos before I can make progress on Skolakosophy, and until I can make Skolakosophy, progress on Skolakosophy, I can't do the last 3 for Nyctodromi. Hushery, I have unlocked the 5. However, I don't have the levels that I need to move up, which means that I'm locked out of Illumination until I need it. That brings us back to Bosk. So Bosk is blocked by the skill that I want. It's not a high enough level. Same story with Preservation. Horamachistry we cleared out. Birdsong, I need to level things up to 5 to move them up. And Ithistry, we only have 1 more to commit, but I'm leaving that aside. So again, we're still in we're in okay shape. What I really did here was get myself a bunch of extra elements of the soul, and this is going to be used for a future Numa. But and of course, it's also nice to get some of the lore. But what I wanted to do here was try and get a few of those lessons down because, number one, it's very interesting. Number two, it's practical in terms of the elements of the soul that we get. But number three, it would also just be nice to try and break these little lore bits up in fragments. So basically, after we get the sort of the memories that we, or not memories, but after we have the interactions that we want with either new people or with books, we get the like we get to spend a little more time committing these things and talking about sorry, I'm stumbling over myself. We get to basically, a new book arrives, we get a chance to commit some new things, and we get a chance to talk about what the what the different fragments mean. We have a visitor come in, they give us Hyksos. Again, we have an opportunity here to level something up and put it into the Tree of Wisdoms. It's definitely going to be a journey to try and get these things moved up, which is why I don't want to spend too much time agonizing over the tree. I obviously did some prep work before this stream here, but we're definitely at a point where we're going to be able to take advantage of Numa to make the most of the skills that we have. Okay, the Mantis. There have been many attempts to depict the House of the Sun. This, by the visionary painter known only as the Magyar, is the best known. It's signed and dated. If it really is the original, it must count as one of the great treasures of the house. Beneath the skin of the world, we find the Mantis, also called the World Spine, also called, the House of the Sun. The Mantis is the home of the hours on which the world depends, and a sojourning place for certain departed souls. Above the house is the glory, the origin of light to which souls aspire. At the foot of the house and around its walls, though it has no walls, is the wood. Beneath the house is nowhere. Okay, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go sort of vertically through these different rooms. So we've taken a look at this piece of art. This doesn't really count as art, so I'm going to spend some time in the Flood Gallery. So we will examine Lady Tryphon. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. And actually, I'm going to start changing it up a little bit in terms of... so this one we need Rose, Scale, Heart, and Sky. And for this, I'm willing to speed things up a little bit. I deserved a little quiet time. Now, I don't think I have a pitcher of water again. I've got my reserve, but... maybe not the wisest thing for me to be using up the health here, but lower the bucket, creaking into the dark. Lady Tryphon, a very old portrait in the Byzantine style. A handwritten card tucked into the frame reads, Sequester on site, GC. So we have done Leaves in the Wind before, but no rule saying we have to avoid it. Nope, I think this was my reserve. All right, lots of new things. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements and of the Ministry of Agriculture. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. And we've got some mackerel. So if we needed to open some rooms, this would be very helpful, but right now we're just kind of sitting on it. We actually have a lot more mackerel than I know what to do with, so... This is a little bit of a drag just because I have competing priorities here, but we'll use the FET in this case. Alright, the Admonitory Automata Project. Footage of experimental devices under development in the Cucurbit under Governor Collar's supervision. The Admonitory Automata are nasty little things of spring and wire, but they all have merry faces of painted tin. The last item shown is a prototype towards something called a condignator, which Collar says proudly will allow a prisoner to elaborate their own punishment. He hastens to add that he hopes that in the coming era, punishment will be an entirely obsolete concept. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And here we have an investigation of a foundered country, subtitled Recordings from the Atlantic Coast. The phonograph initially seems to consist entirely of wave sounds and the cries of gulls, but attention to the cries suggests they are not gulls at all, perhaps not even birds. The bird cries resolve to possibly human voices, half lost in the sound of waves. They lament the absence of a city unborn. They hymn the ice behind the wave, the amber cobbles, or perhaps amber corals. The tenor of their song is melancholy, but also increasingly menacing, as they promise the city irresistible. As the voices fade, the distant bells are clearly to be heard among the surf sounds. Okay, let's move on to the Lake Fusino recordings. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Nice, soothing but undistinguished work in oils. Someone evidently was good at trees and wanted you to know it. In the foreground, an odd curl of shadow might just be a hand reaching in from a crevice in a yew tree trunk. Okay, so I know we spent a lot of time on the Tree of Wisdoms, but that's actually going to be our last time with the Tree of Wisdoms for the next little while, just because we need to, we need to get some higher level skills on certain things, and there'll be two ways that happens. Either we'll get a book from Oriflammes that we want, or we will have a visitor who knows Hyksos, and then we'll be able to read a couple books and watch a movie. So for the next few broadcasts, what we're going to do is I'm probably going to speed things up as I read the various texts or as I accomplish a few different things. I don't want to rush through the game, but I'm sort of at the point here where I'm starting to run low on the number of things that I can do. Essentially, we sort of need 30-second spurts in which to check all of the different paintings. I do want to investigate the house and all of the different stories inside of it, but there's obviously... there are some limits in terms of what I can do just based on the way that these interactions work. But I'm pretty sure we can still fill the time. And then I do have an outside option to move things along if I run out of things to do. But that's going to be the plan for the next little while. We're basically set in terms of all the different items that I have and can interact with. And at this point here, we're really just waiting for a couple of things to fall into place for me. And there are technically some other things that I can do in the game, but I want them to sort of be part of I want them to sort of have a certain logic to them before we move ahead. Again, I got a little unlucky with the Hyksos and the current books that I have, so this does involve a little bit of waiting. But all of that will be done on Wednesday. Again, Tuesday is a day of rest, and there will be something taking its place at some point in the future. I just need to balance out my schedule. But until then, Thank you very much for watching, and take care.